Welcome. Welcome, Rotarians and guests, to the Rotary Club of Seattle, the fourth oldest and one of the world's largest Rotary clubs, where we embrace service above self and are connecting for good. Today's program is a special, multifaceted one. We are going to be celebrating a new playground. We are going to hear from a local broadcasting leader, and we're going to learn about an interesting phenomenon called esports. And to set the stage, I'm delighted to welcome our past club president, retired admiral, and an inspiration to me, Bill Senner. And if you'll remain standing after the inspiration for the day, we've got my Sergeant-at-Arms Ken Grant on the piano and trumpeter Arnie Ness leading our song today. Admiral Bill?
I'm not going to use the podium here. I've shared this poem by E.E. Cummings before, but that was more than 3 years ago. And this glorious day and my shattering inability to conjure an invocation linked to today's topic was all the excuse I needed to recall it. Cummings notoriously used visual representation in his poems, along with the connotation and denotation of the words, and then tampered with the rhythm to convey his point. In this poem, he presents a spiritual rebirth, seeing the world as if for the first time. Let us pray. I thank you, God, for most this amazing day, for the leaping, greenly spirits of trees and a blue dream of sky, and for everything which is natural, which is infinite, which is yes. I who have died am alive again today. And this is the sun's birthday, and this is the birthday of life and love and wings, and of the gay, great happening, illimitably earth. How should tasting, touching, hearing, seeing, breathing, any lifted from the know of all nothing, human merely being, doubt unimaginable you? Now the ears of my ears awake, and now the eyes of my eyes are opened. Amen.
Well, we're going to start the main part of our program, and I'm really excited to be introducing Karen Mathis. Karen, will you come up and join me? Karen is president and general manager of KUOW, the Puget Sound Public Radio. Karen came to KUOW in 2004 from the public radios, did I say 2014. From the public radio station in Washington, D.C., WAMU. During her tenure there, WAMU became one of the nation's top performing public news and information stations by strengthening its position as a national and an international leader in news and cultural reporting, offering many nationally syndicated programs. They also had a very comprehensive offering of local and regional reporting as well. Prior to her appointment at WAMU, Karen served as the general manager of WDTE in Detroit for 21 years. I thought, well, there's a lot of hard work involved. So what does Karen do for fun? And I understand you're a fan of cheesy horror movies?
Yes.
Is that true? Okay. So I am delighted today to introduce Karen Mathis, who's going to tell us the shocking truth about public radio.
Yes, anyone who wants to have a movie night with Plan 9 from outer space, I'm there. Well, good afternoon, and thank you, Kathy, for that introduction. I really appreciate this brief window in your program today, so I want to quickly set the scene for you by reading something to you. We have momentarily lost touch with one another as we react to decades of terrorism, guerrilla war, racial discontent, and economic danger. Somehow, we must build a constituency and a means by which America can again develop consensual agreement about the democratic heritage we all hold in common: history, family, art, science, love of nature, and tolerance for differences. We have faltered, and we are in danger of losing the will to try. Now, that excerpt might sound contemporary, but it's nearly 40 years old, and it's drawn from a 1970s era Carnegie Commission report on public broadcasting's role and the prognosis for its future. So not a whole lot has changed. In a very few months, KUOW will begin celebrating its 65th anniversary year, an amazing milestone even for public radio and almost unheard of in commercial radio to have that kind of unbroken tenure of same service mission, same call sign, same ownership. And our Sapphire anniversary coincides with the 50th anniversary of the signing of the Public Broadcasting Act. President Lyndon Johnson's speech on the occasion of the signing of that act was even more prescient. I'm going to paraphrase only slightly what Johnson said in 1967, that today miracles in communication are our daily routine. With every minute, billions of messages chattering around the globe. Now, he was talking about telegraph, but billions of messages today are chattering around the globe. These young inventions have already shown an immense, even revolutionary power to change society. And he implored that that power be used toward the great and not trivial purposes, because in weak or irresponsible hands, the miracle of communication can generate controversy without understanding, mislead rather than teach, and appeal to our baser passions rather than reason. Does that sound like today? A little bit? And so it was, as it was for public broadcasting's beginnings, so it is today. KUOW and its colleague stations strive to be instruments for citizen decision-making in a democratic society to help you navigate a complex world that grows ever smaller. Your interests as a citizen will never be fully protected unless independent media is in the mix. And in most of our major cities, the public station is the only media not owned by a major corporate conglomerate. Some people question the need for public media as the internet and social media have become ubiquitous. We've entered into this era of roll your own media experience. But career journalist George Krimsky laments that broad, accessible choices have not yielded deeper understanding. Indeed, with our devices and our search threads, you can take a weeks, months-long electronic journey and never bump into an idea or a perspective with which you don't already agree. And silos of the mind are dangerous. T.S. Eliot's 1934 poem, The Rock, decries, "Where is the wisdom that we have lost in knowledge? And where is the knowledge that we have lost in information?" Probably buried under some cat videos somewhere. KUOW strives to fulfill its role as a truth teller, as a sharer of a variety of perspectives, and in our new 5-year plan, we also strive to be the modern manifestation of the Greek Lyceum. The Lyceum, if you remember, was a vaunted, publicly facing space that was kinetic enough and magnetic enough to cut through the distractions of all the craziness that was happening in those harried marketplaces. So to do that, over the next couple of years, we are going to be transforming our digital presence. We're going to focus on mobile delivery and on-demand content offerings. And as a lyceum for this point in time, KUOW provides focus and distillation of the best in discussion, debate, explorations into philosophy, human values, conflict, the arts, science, and nature. And that most human capacity, delight. We strive to delight you. So we are convening some amazing discussions. We're on a roll with our Ask a series. Ask fill in the blank. We've done Ask a Muslim. where we set it up like speed dating. And so we have, maybe a dozen Muslim people and curious non-Muslims, and they get 6 minutes to talk to each other. We ring a bell, and then they switch. And then everybody has a wonderful Middle Eastern meal after the event. And this has become so popular that we are being asked to bring Ask a Muslim to many communities. A gentleman from the Somali press, he said, our people are afraid. We're listening to the rhetoric in this political season, and we are afraid. We need conversation. Please bring Ask a Muslim to our community. We've done Ask a Republican. We've done Ask a Homeless Person. We had 400 to some people turn up on a Friday night a few months ago at the library to hear about being homeless from the homeless perspective. So from KUOW's roots as a student lab in radio to a classical music service to its current stature as a news and information leader in the NPR system, we continue to deploy the formidable power and reach of an electronic medium in smart and engaging ways, we hope, for audiences old and new. But we're going to adhere to our enduring values of credible, authentic, inclusive news coverage, deeper perspectives on issues and events, celebration of lifelong learning, and respect for your intelligence. President Johnson had to abandon his original idea for funding U.S. public media because the burgeoning U.S. electronics industry would not stand for the BBC-style model of tax levies on radio and TV purchases. And that legacy handicaps us a bit today, were it not for the generosity of our communities. Our colleagues at the Canadian Broadcasting Company and the BBC enjoy $19 and $40 per capita, respectively, to fund their operations. U.S. public radio gets 27 cents per capita annually from congressional appropriations to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. You may see $1.27 listed, but that's with television in the mix. Television gets 75% of the money that Congress appropriates for public broadcasting. We get 27 cents. And of the 400 some primary licensees who are NPR members, barely 10% of those are solvent to a degree that they have margin left at the end of the year in which to invest in growing their operations. So please, when KUOW or KPLU, or King Classical, or KEXP, or Nathan Hale High School's public station ask you to invest in public radio's vision of lifelong learning that engages all of the senses, builds knowledge and understanding, that leads to empathy, which will preserve the fabric of this society, just say yes. Thank you. And I guess we have a few minutes for questions. Oh, we don't have any time for questions? Oh, well, sorry. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was great. Thank you, Karen. Thank you so much. Well, it's my pleasure to introduce Cindy Runger again this week. Cindy, as you know, serves as our Sailor Rotary Service Foundation president. But Cindy has an excellent eye for programs and program content. So when I asked her last year, what do you think would be a good program? Cindy said, what do you know about esports? And I said, nothing. She said, great, I think we should do a program, and I trust Cindy. So today, I asked her to do it sooner rather than later. Today, early in our Rotary year, we're gonna learn about esports. So here's Cindy to tee up today's program, and thank you, Cindy, for the great idea.
Hello, everybody. So as a private banker, I have the great pleasure of seeing how people make their mark in the world, and sometimes are very handsomely compensated for it. So for years, I've been following the video game industry and watched how the gaming companies have built games into a competitive sport. And that's how we have esports now. And it's quickly becoming the most popular and interactive entertainment industry in the world. So as a result, these esports athletes are elevated to the likes of LeBron James fame, playing before huge audiences and multi-million-dollar prizes. So about a year and a half ago, I attended a WTIA and Foster Pepper sponsored event, and there I met the panelists, Jason Su, gamer, biochemist, Battlefly CEO, Steven Snoopy Ellis, professional esports player with League of Legends Evil Geniuses, and that's also where I met Bryce Blum, lawyer, gamer, and one of the most recognized professionals in the industry. Bryce, a graduate of Garfield High School, graduated third in his class from Trinity College, and also with honors from George Washington University Law School. He began his practice at Foster Pepper, then about 2 years ago, left to co-found IME Law, a cutting-edge media and entertainment firm where he's been on the forefront of representing teams and leagues in the business of gaming, entertainment law, employment law, intellectual property issues. As a thought leader, he consults with major sports and entertainment companies, frequently appears on esports talk shows, and acts as a contributor for ESPN. Bryce is also the director of esports and in-house counsel of Unicorn, the world's premier esports wagering platform, which has received funding from the likes of Ashton Kutcher and also Mark Cuban. So in the next few minutes, prepare to have your mind open and then blown as Bryce delves into the explosive popularity and business of esports and Seattle's unique, leading, and powerful role in this industry. Bryce.
Well, thanks so much for having me here today. It really is quite the honor. Hope everyone's having a good sunny Wednesday afternoon in Seattle. So I guess I have two jobs. I have to open your minds and then I have to blow your minds. Hopefully the first one will be a little bit easier, though I think that the second one is actually attainable. I have two goals for today with this presentation. The first goal is to create Seattle industry leader literacy around the industry esports. Esports is the largest phenomenon you've probably never heard of. If you have heard of it, odds are you've heard it from your children or grandchildren, and you're wondering why they're hiding in their rooms watching Twitch or playing games instead of going outside and kicking a ball around. At least that's what my mom wondered when I was a kid. And then my second goal for today is to really put the onus on all of you to see this incredible opportunity that Seattle has to be a worldwide leader in this industry. It is booming, but it is young, and we are already extremely well positioned as a city that's a hub for gaming to become a hub for esports as well. So I have the definition of esports up here, or at least I have my working definition, because unfortunately if you Google define esports, it doesn't come up with anything just yet. I refer to esports as the umbrella term that refers to the competitive video game industry. Think sports, except for instead of watching basketball or soccer or football, you're watching video games on your main screen. I wanted to start with hopefully some brands that we're all familiar with, and then I'll move more and more into the foreign world of esports as the presentation goes along. Hopefully we recognize a couple of these brands. Microsoft, that's an easy one. Valve, which is a huge developer in the esports and gaming space. It's also based out of Bellevue, one of the most successful gaming companies in the world. Then I also have Blizzard, Riot Games, and Activision up here. Slightly less familiar are the sports of the 21st century. These are the sports that your kids and grandkids are playing. These sports are already as popular as many traditional sports, and they're only going to grow from here. So Dota 2 and CS:GO, those are games that are produced by Valve. So those are actually the second and third most popular esports on the planet, and they're based out of Seattle. The most popular video game in the world is League of Legends. More than 1% of the world population has played a game of League of Legends. It is an entirely free-to-play game. You can go home right now and download and start playing the game. They make all of their money off of in-game microtransactions, and last year they did over $1 billion in revenue. That's how big this industry is. That's Madison Square Garden about a year ago. Sold out for the North American finals of the League of Legends Championships. This is a World Cup soccer stadium in Seoul, South Korea. More than 40,000 people in that stadium. They were there 3 hours in advance. This venue sold out in under 5 minutes. That's Key Arena last week. This is a picture right after the winner was crowned in this year's The International. It's the largest Dota event every year. It's hosted in Seattle because Valve is based out of Bellevue. They sell out Key Arena from Monday through Saturday. As a lifelong, still to this day, Sonics fan, I can say you don't see Key Arena this busy very often anymore. And on the screen, what you see is pictures of the winning team. They won over $8 million. So you had, quite a few teenagers and 20-somethings who became millionaires a week ago Saturday at Key Arena. So it's easy to put stadium images up here because you probably think, okay, fine, you found like the 100,000 people that are crazy enough to go watch one of these events, and you put them in Key Arena and Madison Square Garden in a Seoul, South Korean World Cup stadium. Unfortunately, there are a lot more crazy people out there. This is the metrics for the unique number of viewers on the final match of major sporting events of 2015. You'll see at the top the League of Legends World Championships, which had 36 million viewers. Now, I left off the Super Bowl because it breaks the graph. It has over 100 million viewers, and it just makes it hard to see, and it also doesn't make my point as effective. I want esports, esports has to be at the top, right? But the point whenever I look at this graph, at least for me, is that we live in a world where, pick an arbitrary age, everyone 32 years of age or younger grew up in a world where video games were readily available, accessible on your cell phone, and cheap. League of Legends is already this popular. I can tell you right now that 50 years from now, 60 years from now, when everyone grew up in a world where video games were readily available and cheap, League of Legends won't be the most popular title. But whatever that title is going to be more popular than the Super Bowl. So whenever I give this presentation, and I've given it a lot all over the country, and it's hard because I can't put you in the stadium. And if you ever get the opportunity to go, even for 30 minutes, I highly recommend it. You won't really get it until you're in a stadium listening to the crowd chant and saying to yourself, this is a football game. My mic turned off. But the best thing I can do is show you a little clip from an event. This is an event that was actually in Seattle at PAX, which is in 2 weeks, from 2014, I believe.
Looks like you got a pickle here for Amazing. That's going to
play-by-play commentary in the background.
Dyrus did not use to get back to lane. Hopefully he can help the team here. They're kind of outnumbered, but now they match it up. Ackerman,
cameras on the bottom on the players' faces so you can see their reactions.
No name now in the wrong spot at the wrong time.
Crowd freaking out.
Pearson picks up another one. TSM starts to run amok. Vasily goes down, killed across the map. Moore trying to do what he can. Wild Turtle, a few more hits to keep himself alive. Drink the potion, man. Drink the potion. Moore gets popped up by a bubble.
More crowd freaking out.
Anyways.
And all the credit there goes to
Color commentary.
for flashing in front of the last Brom queue. 6 kills for TSM now in the game, 13 minutes in. Every miniature fight right there, they won.
Across the board, Jat. From top to mid to bottom, and Dyrus was involved in more than one of them. Let's see this again.
Yeah, so the ultimate from Moore completely whiffs as well as the culling. Then they turn it around.
Kind of crazy, right? So, yeah, that's a great question. I could break it down in vivid detail, but the point is it doesn't matter. I want you to envision a world in which football isn't mainstream. You find someone, you've got a friend from another part of the world who's never watched a game of football, doesn't care about football. We're talking American football, non-football football. Try explaining to them what's happening on a screen. Right? It is, the rules of sport are so complex and confusing. You have to be a part of the game. You have to have played it before. You have to have grown up watching it to really get it. I don't expect you all to get League of Legends. Just like when I watch games that I don't play or didn't grow up playing, it's kind of hard for me to track them. Now, as a major esports fan and as someone who's played a lot of these games, I can probably pick it up a little bit faster. But that's just as true of traditional sports. So now I want to take a brief look at kind of the economics and what's going on in the industry, not just the popularity. So Asia is the hub of esports. Esports were actually born in Korea. The national sport of Korea is StarCraft, little known fact. I have the logo for KESP up here. That's the Korean Esports Association. There's actually a minister of esports in Korea. It's a part of the Korean government. The teams are sponsored by major conglomerates like SK Telecom, and Samsung. They're broadcast on national TV. It's such a part of their culture. But if you look at the esports industry, the fastest areas of growth are not Asia. They're actually in the West. Europe and North America, this is a place where esports are really growing and flourishing. The games are developed in the United States. We're selling out venues all over the country. Just this year, I've been in sold-out venues in Atlanta, in Seattle, in New York, in Vegas. There are so many esports fans in the United States, and it's growing all the time. Now, when you look at this bottom line number, esports isn't actually that big yet. This is just the economics around the competitions. It does not include game sales, which undoubtedly esports drives. It's why companies like Riot will invest $100 million in their esports ecosystem and have a full-blown broadcast and production team, because they have seen data that shows they're going to get to over $1 billion in microtransactions by making that investment in the sport. But the actual industry of the sport itself, the esports, that is what is exploding right now. We're experiencing over 30% year-over-year growth, and this is just the beginning. So this is a quote from the general manager of the Houston Rockets, an NBA team, Daryl Morey, talking with ESPN recently, and esports came up because he mentioned it in his interview, and so they asked, what's with this esports thing? This is where we're at as an industry, and this is the type of opportunity that I have. I mean, I put my money where my mouth is here. I bet my career on this industry, right? If esports disappears tomorrow, I'm out of a job. But this is also the opportunity for industry leaders like yourselves in the city of Seattle. This is just a few of the most recent investments in the esports industry, and it's existing everywhere from the broadcaster, Twitch, which hopefully some of you have heard of. It was bought by Amazon over a year ago for $1 billion. If you're wondering what your kids are doing in their room, they're not just playing video games, they're watching video games, they're watching casual players play. Picture LeBron James goes to play pickup basketball, he straps a GoPro onto his chest, okay? Imagine how many basketball fans would tune in to watch him playing that pickup game live in real time while he commentates, okay, this is what I'm seeing on the court, this is what I'm trying to practice while I'm out here, this is the type of defense they're playing, so here's how we're gonna go about attacking that. I'm a basketball player, I would watch that, right? And that's what's happening with video games. These stars are interacting with their communities in a way that just has not happened in the world of traditional sports. We're also seeing big investment in the events, surprise, surprise, lots of sold out stadiums, and you're seeing it at the team level as well. Speaking personally, not a day goes by where I don't get an email or phone call from an angel investor or VC. Esports is one of the hot investment topics right now. There's also a lot of major media coverage. The New York Times ran a 4-part long expose series on esports, which I highly recommend checking out. It's a little dated at this point. It's probably a year and a half, 2 years old, but it's a really good introduction on some of the key topics. ESPN launched an esports vertical, which is rapidly climbing in terms of their metrics for popularity. I'm a contributing writer for them. I write a couple columns a month on esports business and legal issues. You're also starting to see big brand involvement. I have clients that are sponsored by the likes of Coke and Bud Light and Red Bull, Nissan. These activations are really interesting, and for anyone who works with brands or in the advertising space, I don't have to tell you how much of a problem it is to reach my generation, right? Our ad block rates are off the chart, and we don't want to see ads. What we want to see is native content. We want to be engaged at our level, and esports is the unique opportunity to reach that audience, which is why so many brands are starting to get involved. So I said at the outset I was going to provide some literacy around esports. Hopefully I've done that. Hopefully you'll be able to go home and tell people about Riot Games and League of Legends and Valve. But more important for me is that you see this as a springboard opportunity for Seattle. I've talked about Seattle's existing involvement. Twitch was bought by Amazon. You have Valve and Microsoft here. There are other big gaming companies here. We have venues, right, which need to be sold out. Talk to anyone who owns a venue and they'll say, we need content, especially a venue that doesn't have a regular sports team playing in it on a day-to-day basis. The reality is, this is the sport of the future. You don't have to get it. You don't have to be able to tune into a game of Counter-Strike or League of Legends or Halo to be able to appreciate that this is what your kids and grandkids are doing. This is what my generation is doing, and it's only growing from here. Seattle is a tech hub, right? We want young, engaged, smart people. Imagine sports scholarships to play esports. It's already happening. There are schools giving it out. The University of Washington should have players, esports players on scholarship. They're incredibly bright, talented individuals that could be bringing major awareness to the Seattle and to the University of Washington. We should be hosting more events at our venues. We should be investing. The Seattle investment community should be getting involved in the esports industry. We should be supporting our developers who want to make these games. We should be the U.S. hub for esports. And with that, I'm happy to take your questions.
Over to your left.
What are the virtues of esport?
You mean like why do people play or watch?
Absolutely. What about exercise?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think it's important to remember that a balanced lifestyle is highly relevant for my team clients in our practice. If you were to list the biggest 15 Western esports teams, we represent 10 to 12 of them, depending on what you put on the list. And they all have personal trainers. They all have dietitians who are managing their diets, because just like how Tiger Woods revolutionized the way we looked at golf and we said, wait, this is actually a physical sport and it matters. Your physical health matters for your mental health. These people are playing games for 8 to 10 hours a day. It takes an unbelievable amount of mental stamina and focus. They are making a series of complex decisions in real time that you couldn't even fathom. I mean, if I tried to explain how complicated that clip was, right, their intellect is off the charts. So, from a health and exercise perspective, it's absolutely pivotal, and all throughout the esports professional community, they get that. And so there's starting to be a better focus on healthy living and gaming. And in terms of the virtues of the games themselves, there's a growing body of research which shows that my mom lied to me growing up, and games do not, in fact, rot your brain. Some games do, so don't get me wrong, I'm not going to sit here and tell you Grand Theft Auto is great for your brain, but games like League of Legends and Counter-Strike, complex real-time strategy games, they make you better at creative problem solving. They make you work better in teams. They make you better at math. They make you better at writing. Really, the research is off the charts. So the virtues of esports are huge.
Next question.
Yeah, hi there. Thank you very much for this great presentation. As a mother of a 14-year-old who plays an excessive amount of Counter-Strike and select soccer, so a good balance, how can I kind of help direct him as he's starting to think about, what do I want to be when I grow up? And he's really involved and loves this arena of esports. Like, what options are out there for a young kid looking to explore that space?
I think the possibilities are the same as they are for the traditional sports space. It's not just, okay, everyone wants to grow up and play basketball, right? When I was a kid, when I was your son's age, I wanted to go play in the NBA. Well, that's a little unlikely for a 5'11", kid who cannot dunk and cannot make threes from half court, right? What did I do? I followed my passions. I went to law school. When I left law school, I decided I was going to focus on this industry. Your son has the same opportunities. If he wants to be a lawyer, there's a very ready career path available to him. If he wants to be on the design side, there's so many cool game tech jobs out there. DigiPen is in Seattle, right, which is one of the leading game dev schools. If he wants to be an engineer, he can do that, right? Or computer programmer or developer, right? If he wants to get into ad sales, he can go and work on, for an agency and help connect big brands to esports. I think for me, what I realized is, so the law is great, and I'm really happy that I'm a lawyer, but the transition into practicing in a subject matter that I loved made it infinitely better for me. And I think your son has the same opportunities. Whatever career path they want to go into, don't be afraid to follow their passion and get into this subject or whatever makes them tick.
One over here. So this is a new and emerging industry, and for a long time there were people that were playing out of passion, as I understand it. It's only new that there's representation for the player and then for the teams. Could you share a little bit about, as a player, and kind of expanding upon her question, as somebody's beginning to get into this, they need representation so that they aren't being, basically taken advantage of. Can you expand on that a little?
Yeah, it's a huge problem in the industry, and there have been a number of players that have been taken advantage of. There are people who have signed contracts that gave exclusive IP rights in perpetuity, which is definitely not legal, by the way. You don't have the right to take away someone else's right to post on Facebook a picture of themselves 5 years from now. Most of them aren't represented. So I work on the team side. For conflicts reasons, I can't represent any active professional players. I would say, depending on which game you're talking about, 5 to 10% of players have any form of representation on the other side. That would include a manager, an agent, a lawyer. So it's a real problem. It's a problem that I'm dedicated to solving. I actually, along with Steven Snoopy Ellis, who Cindy was talking about her intro, who's a good friend of mine and a former professional player, he now works as a director at the director level in gaming at Facebook. We co-founded the Player Resources Center, which I'm happy to say is on track to launch an MVP in a couple of months, and the goal is to create a website where these players can go and get really basic resources. We're talking how to review a player contract 101. What are IP rights? What is the difference between a Roth and a 401k? How do I pay my taxes as an independent contractor? So curated content, and then we're also putting together a list of service providers that have offered to do basic consultation pro bono. We had over 800 volunteer applications, so we're curating all of that as best we can. But no, it's a known problem, and the reality is a lot of these kids, their first job is playing video games for a living. When I started at Foster Pepper, they brought in a Fidelity representative who talked to me about all of my options for retirement and helped me, right? I had the real support of an institutional business that these kids don't have yet, although esports teams are rapidly heading in that direction. So I think it's just part of growing pains of a young industry.
Last question.
A lot of us here mentor a lot of younger people or people that are looking for work and this sort of thing. And I'm just curious, since it is an emerging area, are there within the Seattle area people, places, organizations that you recommend we direct people to who are thinking about going into this various related careers to this field?
Well, Seattle's massive for gaming, so if they want to just do a general gaming job, I mean, you've got Amazon, Microsoft, Big Fish, Valve, right? So there's a number of companies that they can go to for gaming. For esports, not really. I mean, Valve, while it makes the second and third most popular esports titles on the planet, it's relatively hands-off. It is a smaller company that is amazing at what it does, and so it has not made the same investment. So if you want to work in esports, working at Valve doesn't really make sense. And to be honest with you, from a mentorship perspective, there's nothing organized around the esports industry. I cannot tell you how many emails or tweets I get from people who just ask the really basic question of, I'm passionate about esports, how do I break into this industry? There's not a really good answer for it, though if you've got someone, you're more than welcome to put them in touch with me.
So a couple thoughts here as we close. I really appreciated Karen's commentary and insights about public radio. I listen almost daily, and I often say, oh, I heard that on NPR. And yet, I don't know about you, but sometimes I get weary from hearing so much bad news, so much distressing news. I almost want to turn it off. And if you feel the same way, you might be interested in a blog I read just recently by Danny Rubin. He writes for the Huffington Post. And he wrote a blog about the 9 best reasons why we should follow the news and why the news is actually good for us. So I thought I'd share those quickly with you. Reason number 1, news makes us better citizens. It informs us of what's going on in the world so we can make better decisions and better choices. And journalism in general is integral to our democracy. We would be lost without it. Number 2, practical. The news keeps us safe in emergencies. If we hear a snowstorm is coming, high winds are headed our way, there's going to be floods in our rivers or whatever, what do? We turn to the news. Maybe it's the radio, maybe it's the television, maybe it's Twitter, but we get our news that keeps us safe. Number 3, News broadens our worldviews. All we have to do is look at some of the opinion pieces that are in any of the major publications, and we can get a fresh perspective, maybe one that we wouldn't have thought of otherwise. So news broadens our views. Number 4, it teaches critical thinking, and I really like this one. Danny Rubin noted that the New York Times has an entire project devoted to this. It's called the Learning Network, and it turns top stories that are reported every day in the news into educational tools. There's grammar lessons, quizzes, in-class activities, all designed to make the news headlines that day part of a learning process, and that's being deployed in many schools. Number 5, news improves our writing. Journalists are taught to write succinctly, to use vivid detail, to check their facts. I think we could all learn from that. Number 6, the news is full of leadership lessons. Danny Rubin points out that the news is brimming with ways that we can improve on the job and in life. We can follow the leadership qualities, for example, that propelled the Dave Matthews Band to #1 on the charts. How someone like our own Sally Jewell, CEO of REI, got onto the current president's cabinet. Or even why Neil Armstrong should be remembered for something more than just walking on the moon. Number 7, and I really like this one, the news is full of career advice. We just need to watch business people and public personalities make their career moves, good ones and bad ones, and follow the lessons learned from that. Number 8, the news gives us a front row seat to history. We just need to sit and watch and see the world unfold. And some days there's good news and some days it's bad news, but we get to see it thanks to the news in real time. And the 9th and final reason why we should be following the news is it serves as our collective water cooler. Media websites are the place to exchange ideas, to argue, to banter, to break down the day's top stories. Often when you've got a strong opinion, where do you want to go beyond bending the ear of your friend? You'll comment on one of the media platforms. So news is good for us. My call to action today, then, is to commit to following the news and perhaps benefiting from a fresh perspective on the news that's out there. Even if it's to listen to new and alternative perspectives, even the bad news, we can learn from it. See you next week. We're adjourned until we're at Olive 8.